Twin brothers Rion and Rafal, both played by Kit Young, created the schools for good and evil to maintain balance in the world. They often practiced sparring together. One day, during what seemed like a friendly duel, Rafal, the evil brother, grew greedy for more power. He used dark blood magic to attack Rion suddenly. But at the last moment, Rion managed to overpower Rafal and threw him off a cliff, seemingly to his death. Years later, a narrator introduces Sophie, played by Sophia Ann Caruso, a fair-haired girl who looks like a princess and believes she is destined to change the world. Her best friend is Agatha, played by Sophia Wiley. Agatha is often taunted and called a witch because of her gloomy appearance and the fact that she lives near a graveyard with her mother. Despite being complete opposites, Sophie and Agatha have a strong bond. Sophie lives with her father, Stefan, and her stepmother, Honora. Life in the small village of Gavalden feels dull to Sophie, and she dreams of something bigger, more magical. One day, the girls visit Doval's storybook shop, owned by a mysterious woman played by Patti LuPone. They search for new fairy tales to read, and the shopkeeper tells them about the School for Good and Evil (SGE). She explains that this is where all fairy tales begin, where young heroes and villains are trained to fulfill their destinies. Agatha thinks it sounds ridiculous, but Sophie is enchanted by the idea. The shopkeeper then tells them a chilling story. 20 years ago, during a blood moon, a girl named Leonora was taken from Gavalden and was never seen again. This story only fuels Sophie's desire to leave her ordinary life behind. That night, Sophie writes a letter to the School for Good and Evil, wishing with all her heart to be taken away from Gavalden. She believes she belongs in a magical world, far away from the boredom and sadness of her small village. That night, Sophie tries to sneak out of her house, hoping to leave Gavalden behind and find a better life. But Agatha catches her and tries to stop her, worried for her friend's safety. As they argue, they notice the night sky turning blood red. Suddenly, a dark, terrifying creature appears and drags them both through the woods. The creature eventually releases them, but before they can escape, a giant stimph, an undead bird-like creature, swoops down, grabs them, and flies them away. The stimph takes them to the School for Good and Evil. But something unexpected happens. It drops Sophie off at the School for Evil, while Agatha ends up at the School for Good. Sophie is horrified, insisting that there's been a mistake. She's supposed to be in the School for Good, not evil. Meanwhile, Agatha just wants to go home. But neither girl has a choice. They are given their school uniforms. Agatha receives a beautiful, flowery princess gown, while Sophie is forced to wear a ragged, ugly sack dress. At the School for Evil, Sophie meets Hort, who is the son of Captain Hook. Hort quickly develops a crush on Sophie. In this school, students are called Nevers because they are training to become villains. Over at the School for Good, students are called Evers because they are destined to become heroes. The school master, played by watches over both schools, and there are different teachers for each side. Yuba teaches forest survival. During the welcoming ceremony, both Sophie and Agatha feel out of place. But they are both drawn to Tedros, the most popular ever prince and the son of King Arthur. Because Sophie doesn't seem evil and Agatha doesn't fit the typical image of a princess, both girls quickly become outcasts in their schools. Determined to find Sophie, Agatha sneaks into the School for Evil. But as she tries to move through the halls, she is chased by a terrifying Cupid statue that comes to life. She runs until she ends up in the library, where she overhears a tense conversation. Neverdeen Lady Lesso, head of the School for Evil, and Everdeen Clarissa DeVay, head of the School for Good, are arguing. DeVay believes that the schoolmaster made a mistake, and that Agatha and Sophie were dropped into the wrong schools. After the deans leave, something even more unsettling happens. Rafal, who was supposed to be dead, appears to Agatha. He warns her to stay away from Sophie, claiming that Sophie belongs to the School for Evil now. Agatha, undeterred, finds Sophie and tells her what happened. Together, they decide to go to the headmaster, Rion, to ask for help. They enter his tower and find the Storian, a magical book that writes the stories of every character. Rion tells Sophie that if she can find her true love, she will be allowed to switch to the School for Good. Only real Evers find true love, and this challenge could prove where Sophie truly belongs. The next morning, Agatha and Sophie start their classes. Agatha's lessons focus on how to smile, dress properly, and behave like a princess, something she absolutely hates. Meanwhile, Sophie gives Agatha a letter for Tedros, believing he is her true love. Agatha delivers the letter before class, and she and Tedros share a brief, meaningful moment. Back at the school for evil, Sophie faces trouble. During class, Hester, a fellow evil student, attacks her. But before Sophie can get hurt, a dark force manifests and saves her. It's Rafael. Lady Lesso witnesses this and later tells Sophie that ever since Rafael's death, evil has never beaten good in fairy tales. Seeing Rafael's interest in Sophie, Lesso insists that Sophie belongs at the school for evil, as her powers are growing stronger. In her next class, Agatha learns about the wish fish, magical creatures that can make your deepest wishes come true. Agatha uses her wish to rescue the soul of a student who disintegrated 100 years ago. The girl's spirit appears, thanks Agatha, and dies peacefully in her arms. But just then, a Stimpf arrives, and Agatha recognizes it as Gregor, now transformed into a monstrous creature. Tedros sees the Stimpf and, thinking it's attacking Agatha, kills it with his sword. Later, Dean DeVay tells Agatha that the most powerful magic is empathy, and she assures her that Agatha is a true princess and belongs in the school for good. Sophie finally gets a chance to talk to Tedros, but their moment is interrupted when Sophie is dragged to the Doom Room, a place of punishment, for refusing to accept her place in the school for evil. As a punishment, Lady Lesso cruelly cuts off Sophie's hair. Heartbroken and defeated, Sophie is approached by Rafael through a mirror. He whispers to her, convincing her to do whatever it takes to win Tedros, no matter the cost. Let me know if you want to keep going with this. I can take it section by section. While the students practice unlocking their finger glow, Sophie returns to the school for evil with a bold new attitude and a glamorous makeover, shocking Agatha. A montage shows Sophie quickly gaining the favor of the Nevers, making friends with Anadil, Dot, and Hester, and rising to popularity. Agatha, worried for her friend, advises Sophie that to win Tedros' heart, she must prove she's truly good. She tells Sophie about an enchanted arrow that only flies straight if the shooter is pure of heart. During the archery test, Agatha secretly uses her magic to help Sophie hit the bullseye. Tedros, believing Sophie must be good, is convinced and asks her to the upcoming ball. The idea of an ever and a never together causes chaos. To settle the matter, the schoolmaster decides there must be a trial by tale. During the trial, Tedros and Sophie must survive the Blue Forest at night, filled with dangerous creatures, and find each other before dawn. To protect Sophie, Agatha sneaks into the forest. When a reaper nearly kills Tedros, Agatha begs Sophie to save him. But Sophie, too scared, refuses. Agatha is forced to step in and rescue Tedros herself. Realizing Sophie isn't truly good, Tedros withdraws his trust, and Sophie blames Agatha for ruining everything. Sophie is locked in her room for cheating, but Anadil brings her a heartfelt letter from Agatha. However, Rafael's influence grows stronger. He convinces Sophie that Agatha is her enemy and that he is the only one who truly understands her. Tempted, Sophie accepts Rafael's offer of blood magic. With her newfound dark powers, Sophie confronts Dean Lesso, revealing that Rafael once chose Lesso, whose real name is Leonora, because he saw something special in her. But, according to Sophie, Leonora was never evil enough for Rafael, and now Sophie herself has taken that place. Sophie, transformed into a hideous crone, crashes the Evers' ball. Agatha tries to reach out, but Sophie rejects her, declaring them enemies. Tedros, seeing no other option, decides Sophie must be stopped. He leads the Evers to attack the school for evil, forcing a shift, since good can never strike first, only defend. The Evers and Nevers switch sides, plunging both schools into a chaotic battle. As the fighting rages, Sophie escapes by transforming into a raven and flies to the headmaster's tower, seeking revenge. There, the headmaster reveals himself to be Rafael. He admits he's been testing Sophie all along, hoping to find his true love so he could gain ultimate power. A flashback reveals that Rafael survived his fall, killed his brother, and has been manipulating the balance of good and evil for centuries. When Sophie and Rafael kiss, darkness sweeps over the schools, condemning everyone to die and allowing Rafael to rule. But as Sophie begins to feel remorse, Agatha confronts them. Rafael, aiming to kill Agatha with the Storian's quill, is thwarted when Sophie steps in front of Agatha and takes the deadly blow. The world shifts back to normal, and Rafael's plan starts to unravel. Tedros sneaks in and attacks Rafael, while Agatha holds a dying Sophie. With their combined strength, the two girls defeat Rafael once and for all. As Sophie dies, she tells Agatha she loves her. Overcome with grief, Agatha kisses her cheek, and her tears, symbolizing their true love of friendship, heal Sophie, bringing her back to life. The fairy tale world is saved. The students of good and evil, no longer divided, find happiness together. As a portal back to Gavalden opens, Agatha chooses friendship over romance, kissing Tedros goodbye and returning home with Sophie. But as the girls settle back into their old lives, an arrow from Tedros pierces the veil between worlds, accompanied by his voice saying he needs Agatha. The story closes with the promise that this is only the beginning. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel.